Hey friends, it's UrsulasRevenge, and happy... I don't know what day I'm uploading this. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about the state of events in Star Stable, where I think they're going, what's happened in this, literally the last couple of months with events, it's going to be a speculation day. We're speculating today. Now, a disclaimer before we start, I don't know if this video is going to get a little spicy. I'm hoping it's not, but this isn't scripted, so I have no idea what I'm going to say. Also, I don't know if this video is going to be long. I have the tendency to kind of like beat points like to death. And I think that just comes from a fear of not being understood and upsetting people. Maybe it's autism, maybe it's Maybelline, who's to say? In an effort to try and keep this video a little visually entertaining, I'm going to be doing some training, so you are more than welcome to train alongside me while you listen. It's no secret that the festivals and events have been a point of contingency within the community. There's a lot of strong feelings around them. Most of them are kind of rooted in nostalgia, but especially recently with the borderline failure of both the Camp Western and Rainbow Festival events, this tension is reaching an all-time high. And we are to blame for this. The state of events being the way that they are our fault. At least partially, and here's why. I know that sounds like fighting words, but if you take a look at literally any Star Stable social media post, specifically on Instagram, because I don't think they use Twitter anymore, there's just a lot of negativity in their comments about everything. Every time they're excited about something and they share a feature, it's met with complaints about another section of the game that honestly the social media team has no control over. They're just sharing the new features. And this isn't to say that you can't be negative. Obviously, you can just not like something, but it depends on the way that it's said in the comments. You still have to be respectful the way that you say things. Imagine you're working on a project, say in school or college or just personally, and you're really excited about it and you share it and you're hoping that other people are excited about it too. But all you get back is complaints about your last project, or people just not liking the project that you put out, or maybe they say, oh, you should have used that color, or maybe you should have worded this differently. But instead of it being constructive and helpful, it's just tearing you down. And that's the state of the Star Stable comment section on all of social media. And not even just social media. If you go and look at, I guess it's technically social media, but if you go and look at Reddit, it's constantly threads and threads and threads of, why is this event so bad? I miss the old Star Stable. Star Stable's going downhill, or like, I don't know, there's like a lot of discourse now saying like that Star Stable's going to close. That's a lot of fear mongering, and honestly, it's not even true. And while yes, you have to take everything with a grain of salt on social media, I can't imagine how terrible it feels for the team to constantly be bombarded by just unhelpful, hateful comments. I get it, they're a company, they're big boys, girls, and theys. They can handle it, but I also can't help but think that it's confusing for them as well, because Star Stable in general, or at least of late, has been very open to community feedback. So when you're constantly getting remarks about how an event is terrible, or how the game isn't going the way that you want it to, or that there's bugs, they really do take that into consideration, and then they restructure their plans around what we're asking for as a community. But the other problem with that is that the community is very confused about what we want, because you have some people saying they want old Star Stable, you have other people saying that they actually like what's going on with the new in-game, but guess which one is louder? The negative ones. This always happens. It's not uncommon. It's not exclusive to Star Stable. Not that anybody who's even like saying the negative comments, they're probably not here. They probably don't know what I'm saying, but I still feel like I need to say it. You gotta restructure your negative comments to be constructive instead of just mean. And also not so one-sided, because all of these like negative comments I see, they're like, nobody wants this, or no one ever asked for this. Meanwhile, it's like, yeah, half the community did ask for it, it just wasn't you. Anyways, I've gone off on a tangent. That's not even the point of this video. The point is we are speculating about the future of festivals, and yeah, we're the problem because we are confusing Star Stable. They don't know what to do because we just keep giving them mixed signals. But let's take a look at one of their arguments, which is missing the old Star Stable and the way that there were so many more frequent events. I feel like a lot of this community looks at the game through rose-tinted goggles, which is just to say that they miss the way that things used to be. And honestly, I think that that's just partially due to being younger when they experience those things. As you get older, it's just natural that, not that you lose your creativity, but just things don't seem as whimsical anymore. Things that you enjoy doing as a kid maybe aren't so fun anymore as an adult, because you know different things now. You've learned, you've experienced other things that maybe bring you more joy. The thing about Star Stable is back when we were kids and enjoying this game, there was literally nothing to do. A lot of the fun and nostalgia that people are actually looking at is stuff that they did for themselves. Star Stable very much was a game, and honestly a lot of MMOs are the games that you have to create your own fun. You go off on adventures, you create your own training paths, you join your friends in guilds and clubs and groups to go off and do things together and make your own fun. That hasn't changed about Star Stable. In fact, Star Stable has made it more so that they've added more features so that you can actually just enjoy things by yourself and you have more things to do instead of just kind of sitting around and making your own fun. You at least have more options now than you did back in 2011, 2012 when the game was in its infancy. I feel like I've seen like a lot of videos where people talk about the nostalgia of Star Stable, and I have to rely on those videos because I wasn't around for it. And maybe I'm just like focused on a very specific scene in one of Kitty Spiderweb's videos, but there was like this ramp or something in Forgotten Fields that apparently everybody used to like go hang out in and just kind of like parkour down, and that was the fun you made in the game. Like, that was it. I feel like compare that to Star Stable now, and Star Stable now is a much better game. Like, objectively, like if you take a step back and you look at what the game offered back then and what it's offering now, do you really think that old Star Stable is the better game? And honestly, if you know what, we can put this to the test. If you miss old Star Stable, you can go play the Season Rider games. They are available through sources. I won't say which, but they are available. And you can actually just get a taste of old Star Stable. I've played those games, and while they are fun, I will admit, I don't think I can play more than an hour without getting frustrated. Star Stable has made a lot of quality of life improvements to, you know, make the game more fun for everyone, not just the people who grew up with the Season Rider games or original Star Stable Online, but for everyone. And that is what gives the game longevity, is by getting new players in, not sustaining old players. And maybe that's a harsh take, but it's true. And to that same point, let's take a look at the old Star Stable events. Looking back at the old events, it also feels like that same quality applies to them. Again, I wasn't around for most of these, but from my own research, it does seem like most of the events maybe added one or two small little quests, a couple of outfits, and that was pretty much it. They were really short-lived. They only lasted like a week or two, if not just a couple of days, and you could pretty much complete whatever it was in maybe like 15 minutes to an hour. There were a couple of longer quests for old Halloween events, and honestly some like really scary ones. But overall, while they were abundant, there was few and far between of what to do during the events. When Star Stable announced their new festival structure, they explained that they were breaking it down into 4 specific seasons with a bunch of things to do in each of those seasons. We have the spring event, which has turned into the Equestrian Festival, which groups open house with some other spring style events. And honestly, to this day, I still think that the Spring Festival is the most successful festival that Star Stable has. I really hope that they don't change it too much. And I like what they did with it this year, where, say for the Baroness, even though it was the same thing as we did last year, you get a new reward every year. So you get to collect the rewards year after year of doing these events. I do think that they made the Baroness too easy this year, but that's not the point of this video. The spring event, they added so much to it. They added so many races. There's just a lot to do, and I think that's kind of the gold standard for what the events should be. After that, you have the summer event, which is all about Western style riding and just kind of like the American West horse culture. You've got renegades and different horse tour activities. Then you have fall, which is about Galloper Thompson and visiting his sort of castle, I guess. And you have Halloween related events like trail rides and helping ghosts and other kind of little mini games and races to do for that event. And then finally you have the winter event, which is a lot of the same, mostly races, buying things, and exploring another little area of the map. They did add to it this year with varying degrees of success. I will maybe get into that. I think that the winter event could be improved. It's worth saying that those are the 4 events. And you might be saying, well, we have Rainbow Festival. And honestly, I don't think Rainbow Festival was supposed to still be around. So while Galloper Thompson's Keep and the Winter Village event have been around for a little bit longer than the spring and the summer events, I think the structure announcement of the new events came out after those. If I had to estimate, probably around 2021, but honestly, all these years are kind of mixing up for me. The point is that it was only supposed to be the 4 events: winter, spring, summer, and fall. But then you have Rainbow Festival, and when the structure came out, if I'm remembering correctly, in 2021, there was a lot of discourse around Pride, and specifically with Star Stable involved. For a long time, they couldn't even say that Rainbow Festival was a celebration of Pride. They couldn't acknowledge that it was Pride. They couldn't say Happy Pride Month. They couldn't support the gays openly. And there was a whole discourse about it because in some of the regions where there are servers for Star Stable, being gay is still a crime. And they couldn't openly say that without causing problems. And while I do think that that was the incorrect stance, I understand why they had to do it as a company perspective. And we have come a little bit further in those 2 years since that controversy. Fact of the matter is, there is a reason why Pride is necessary, and it's because it's not legal everywhere. And it really should be, because there's literally nothing wrong with it, and it's just a natural way of life. Anyways, that was also right around the time that they announced this new festival structure. And I think because of the kickback that they got from how they reacted a couple of years ago, I think that they were too scared to actually just straight up remove the Rainbow Festival. Understandably, because again, it's still a necessary celebration. But because of the fear of the community fighting them back over removing Rainbow Festival and Pride in general, I think that they just opted to keep it to just not cause any problems. So Rainbow Festival kind of got grandfathered into their 4 festival structure. They were kind of like a secret 5th festival that we were as a community expecting them to update, but it wasn't part of their plan. That still doesn't change why they removed some of their smaller festivals, but it's worth kind of digging into why they did that. And back in March of 2024, they talked about the future of festivals in a blog post. But I just wanted to point out this one section here. You may remember that one of our main goals with festivals was first to get a handle on the pipelines and workflows when it came to the creation and delivery. We had a great number of festivals throughout the year, and many times the most we could deliver was a straight up reactivation across the board. And even this left a little time for our team to work on anything else. Players were unhappy with the lack of new content in and around festivals, and our team was frustrated with the stressful productions. Something had to change. It is reasonable to want them to make changes and constantly update the festivals because we want new things every year, and I think that does make sense, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But they also do have to be realistic and prioritize what gets updated. If they're constantly updating festivals, they don't have time to actually give us new features that we're also asking for. So they have to decide, do they want to keep building the game outside of festivals, or do they want to only focus on festivals? If you only focus on festivals, it leaves little room to actually expand and improve the game on a larger scale. It doesn't give us any more story quests. It doesn't give us new areas to explore. It would just be festivals. It also helps to kind of look at the team structure that Star Stable has. We're going back to the blogs for this one. So back in March of 2023, Star Stable Entertainment released a blog post. This was before they were moved to the website. And in this blog post, they have a section titled Myths and Legends. And in it, Stacey Place explains some of the team structures and the concept of the missing quest team after she kind of misspoke in a article. That article kind of went viral, and a lot of the community really honed in on the thought of that there isn't a quest team, so that's why quests were missing. But that really wasn't the case. The truth behind it was that the quest team doesn't just work on quests. They work on a bunch of different things. There isn't a dedicated quest team because they do so much. In the blog post, she explains how Star Stable had been restructuring and kind of giving different priorities to different teams. The team that works on quests had previously been known as the Jorvik team. They're receiving a new name soon, the Continuous Experience Domain. Remember that. As we're currently in the middle of some reorganizing. This is because they handle most of the content that fills our world: races, quests, area revamps, festivals, and so on. As I write this, probably long before you're reading it, the team is currently working on the next primary quest, Storm over Devil's Gap, the next primary festival, the Equestrian Festival, horse progression, and a secondary quest, Anne's Horse Training. So much falls under their umbrella, giving the team various content they can work on. The horses team is actually the horses and character team, soon to be known as the creatures and features domain. They deliver not only all of our amazing horses, but also NPCs, pets, new types of attack, and they're in charge of retrofitting process, just to name a few things. So keeping that in mind, we can go to the January 2024 game blog post. In this article, they talk about game production, and I wanted to again point out a section where they explain different teams within game production. In the section, what the production team looks like for Star Stable, they break down some of the other teams. So Star Stable has 6 producers, and they're each in charge of teams that have specific tasks. First, you have Ali, who is the technical producer responsible for the game's performance and what platforms that you can play on. It's very tech related. Next, you have Dan and Juliana, who are responsible for having more players discover the game while having a smooth onboarding experience. This is the team responsible for the website, the game launcher, and the early areas of the game, like Jorvik Riding Camp and Moorland. So some of the experiences that we're seeing kind of come to Moorland to make that area more of a central hub. You also have Karen, who is responsible for horses, player avatar, and pets in the game. This is the creatures and features team that they talked about in the other article. And finally, you have Mariana, who is responsible for the continued experience of the game. This is that continuous experience domain that they were talking about in the other article. This is one of the largest areas consisting of several project teams, which is needed since their focus is everything related to quests, events, and quality of life improvements. So you have one team responsible for festivals, quests, events, and quality of life improvements within the game. That's like 70% of what we see as players in the game. This one team is responsible for everything that everyone complains about in this game. When you have people focusing on festivals, you have others complaining that there are no quests. And then if we get smaller quests, you have other people complaining that 1, they weren't long enough, or 2, that we're not focusing on this other feature. And then if you add the new features that we've been asking for, you get bugs associated with that, and then you have more people complaining about the bugs. There's just no winning for that team. And I think a lot of us just need to take a step back and realize that before we kind of wonder why things aren't happening the way that they are. Like, I don't envy this team. I am constantly overloaded with my own work. I couldn't imagine doing all of this and then just having nobody ever be happy. And again, I'm not saying that you have to be overly positive or falsely positive. I think that we just need to realize that there's so much more going on beneath the surface that none of us actually know about. But now, how does this actually apply to the festivals that we have received? I mean, we already know that they can't focus on all domains at once. I mean, if you have new quests coming out, maybe festivals go on the back burner. If you have new festival features coming out, then other things go on the back burner. And I think that's just kind of what happened here. The whole point with them focusing on 4 festivals throughout the year and just doing little updates at a time to each of them every year, just slowly adding to them as they go, was supposed to help alleviate some of the stress and extra work that they have to do constantly reimagining events. If they have set baseline events, it should just be little tweaks here and there and just adding small things. But sometimes things just don't go according to plan. I think that Camp Western was so well received last year that they didn't think that they had anything to do really for it this year outside of a couple outfits, which is a different team entirely. I have a feeling, and this is my speculation, I should say, this is the timestamp for the speculation. I think that Camp Western was so well received last year that why change it? It was, everybody loved it. We don't really have to do anything else. Maybe we tweak a couple of things. We lessen the intensity of the wolves, update the rewards that you get for doing the renegade chests, and then that's kind of good enough. People are going to love it again this year. Except that there were so many things from last year's festival that were obsolete to add this year because they were already in the game. So if you take a look at what we got last year for the Camp Western event, first of all, it was a whole new event. So we had everything to explore. We had new gold mining mechanics. We had the wolves to look out for. We had the horses to gather. We had chests to look for. There was a lot of exploration and activities to do. And then on top of that, you add a whole new feature, which is lunging. So we had a couple of weeks to play out with this new feature, which added a lot more excitement to the event as well. So between it being a brand new event with new things to explore, a new feature to test out, Camp Western last year had so much more going for it than it did this year. This year we kind of expected that same feeling. We wanted the excitement of that new event because we enjoyed it the year previous. But because lunging was already added to the game, it really wasn't an event feature, so we crossed that one off the list. But maybe since we don't have a new feature to test and that kind of took up one whole week of update, maybe we chop off a week of the update. And then I think that that's kind of where the problem is. There wasn't a feature to replace lunging, and I'm not saying that they have to constantly add new features to the game for us to test out, especially since we just tested out show jumping for around the weeks of the Equestrian Festival. Also around the Camp Western event, we got 3 races. We've got 2 the week before the event started, which are not event exclusive. They are year-round. They're the Tumbleweed race and the other one. And then you have Scott's Jackalope race, which also isn't event exclusive. You can continue to do the Jackalope race now. There's a high score for it, but I don't know if it actually works. The issue here is now we had this event, but we didn't really have event exclusive activities to do. So essentially boiled down to kind of a wolf-infested area of the map that you can maybe collect gold, but those are really the only exclusive parts about the event. When you think of events in video games, you think that it has to be exclusive activities. And while we do have the exclusive activities of finding the 4 horses and doing Carl's chores, looking for the renegade chest, the gold mining, and just avoiding the wolves, those are kind of exclusives that don't feel very fulfilling. As much as I love looking for chests and looking for the horses, we have other activities that are similar to that. I can look for the satchel in Hollow Woods literally every day, and I can look for Mary's animals literally every day. And it doesn't cost me resources to do those things. Well, I suppose a garden powder, but garden powders aren't hard to come by. It just didn't feel special this year. And I think that that's really what most people are upset about. So now you go to the Rainbow Festival. The Rainbow Festival is the event that's not really supposed to happen, but they are now obligated to do it because if they take it away, we would riot. I'm not gonna lie, we would riot. Apparently, the reason that we didn't get the Cloud Kingdom was because of technical difficulties within the game of having it be reactivated. And while that might be true, I think that the community reaction to it last year just made it not worth fixing. Whether you feel so or not, Star Stable has gone and tried to fix the things that break with each update. They have made it a huge priority this year to do bug fixes, and they've kept on their word. While there are still bugs, they do regularly go in and keep track of what bugs are currently plaguing the game and what they can do to fix it. And they post bug reports and updates weekly or bi-weekly. If they're so keen on fixing the bugs and different things, why not take the time to fix the Rainbow Festival? And I really do think it's because of the comments that we got last year. I feel like I saw so many comments before Rainbow Festival released to the game where people were kind of saying like, well, I hope that Rainbow Festival isn't exactly the same as it was last year, or there's nothing new to do, or the Cloud Kingdom is exactly the same as it was before, or if I have to do the black and white grayscale finding all the fragments mission again, I'm going to rage quit. I've seen so many comments like that, but then the second that Rainbow Festival doesn't return or Cloud Kingdom doesn't return, everybody's up in arms about it not returning. And like, I understand that the people who are upset of Cloud Kingdom not returning are probably not the ones who were complaining about the grayscale mission. Again, negativity is always louder than the people who are positive about things because, and we do this a lot. If you think about like, if you buy something on Amazon and it just doesn't work out the way that you want it to, the first thing you're going to do is go write a negative review. But if you get that same item and it does what you want it to do, you don't always think to leave a positive comment. And that's because it did what you expected it to do. No more, no less. So I think with the team kind of being strapped and not having time to actually update the festival, not just to fix it if the true cause was the technical difficulties, but to just also enhance it and just add to it as they would typically do every year. I have a feeling that it wasn't worth it to them to fix it because they just didn't have the time to give it the attention that the players are demanding. So at that point, it's just kind of easier to deal with the hate of it not coming back versus the hate of putting so much time and effort only for people to also not like it. And that's not even addressing the things that they are working on. I know that I've focused a lot of this video on, oh, they're just not working on events because it's too much for them to do at such a short period of time that they just can't focus on giving events the attention that we as a community are asking them to. And it's because there are lots of features that were on the slate for this year that we haven't seen yet. And I think that that's really what the culprit was. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we were supposed to get a inventory update, but they needed more time to work on it, which is having it released later this summer. We know that the inventory overhaul is just a massive project, and the team responsible for that is the same one responsible for quests and events. So on top of the inventory update that we've all been asking for, because a lot of us are out of storage slots in our storage. We can't even buy the new clothes because we have no space to put them. And that same storage update is going to feed into the other updates we've been asking for, such as home stable customization, possibly, hopefully, which we also know that they're hoping that it does lead to that. And who knows what else. Additionally, they just gave us all new animations for the emotes for our new player character models. And considering our character models came out almost exactly a year ago, you can say that this is a long overdue update, but maybe it just took that long because the team wasn't able to focus on it because we had to get new events. It's kind of hard to judge without knowing where their priorities actually are. Which is bringing me to another really important point that I feel like I need to make. I don't think that a lot of our frustrations with Star Stable are unwarranted. I think, and we've seen this before, I think a lot of our confusion and frustration is because we don't know what's going on. There's a distinct lack of communication from Star Stable right now, and I've noticed it the last couple of months. I don't know if it's because what they were planning to share hasn't gone to fruition yet, and they're kind of waiting to see when that's going to be. We rely on knowing what's coming to this game via blog posts and the weekly updates. I was expecting the last blog post that we got for May to include what happened with Camp Western or why it wasn't as updated as we wanted it to be. But instead, the only article that we got within that blog post was about the American Saddlebred. And my suspicion is that there was supposed to be an article talking about the inventory update, but because that didn't actually come out, they had to pull it from the article. Now, I have no proof of that. The only reason why I think that that's what happened is because that article came out right around the time that it was supposed to come out, and they told us it wasn't ready. And two, those monthly blog posts usually feature more than one article, usually 2 or 3. Even if you look at the other articles that talked about other horse breeds that came out, literally the blog post right before it, on April 30th, the blog post talked about the Self-Rancé, the Android launcher redesign, and dressage coming to the game full time. The whole article wasn't just about the Self-Rancé. And it's not like May was an empty month. We had a whole event, and usually they do event recaps at the end of the monthly blog post. I don't think it's too much to ask for kind of a little bit of a clarification from Star Stable. I think that there's a lot going on that maybe they're not ready to share, but at least tell us that. At least acknowledge that maybe the events weren't up to what we were expecting them to be. They didn't meet our expectations, and it's okay that they didn't if they tell us maybe why that happened. And I think that's my biggest struggle with the state of events right now, is that we don't know what's going on because they're not telling us. The most recent information we have is that the focus is on the 4 events, minorly updating them every year so that they have time to focus on additional things that we're getting. Like, we know that we're getting a new story quest next week, and that I think like the plan is to release story quests is like 2 times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, or maybe it's quarterly, I don't remember. Another part of the Future of Festivals blog post that I want to point out is this. We focused on limiting the number of festivals we did each year and putting most of our attention on the heavy hitters, the festivals that players engaged with the most and were most excited about when they released. We also wanted to emphasize how these festivals fit within the lore and world of Jorvik. So we challenged certain festivals, such as Valentine's, Easter, and Midsummer, while highlighting others such as Equestrian, Halloween, and Winter. It's easy for us to look back fondly now and remember the positives of the festivals, such as Easter, but at the time they were also buggy, challenging to work with, and sometimes just not fun to play. Through analyzing our internal data, we saw this clearly manifested through negative sentiment trends and lack of engagement. They needed to be paused. We continue to look at all of these factors for our current festivals to prepare for those tough calls and changes when they arise. Last year, we down-prioritized work on the Rainbow Festival by only doing a reactivation, which meant that our team could focus on the new Western content at Starshine Ranch and the gameplay in Hollow Woods. This was the right call, with Rainbow Festival being one of the festivals players engaged with less. Knowing this, there will be some additional changes to Rainbow Festival this year that allow us to prioritize other exciting things on the horizon that will deliver more what players have been asking for. So, one, this actually does confirm that they are looking to see how the players feel about the events when they're happening to decide if they're going to continue them. And two, the importance of strategically just reactivating quests to prioritize other tasks and activities. Not just festivals, but other things like quests and whole new area revamps. And specifically, they acknowledged that the additional changes to Rainbow Festival this year was allowing them to prioritize other things, such as the inventory upgrade, and also, spoiler, the Star Pass or Trailblazer track that they're doing in addition to the championship sort of like daily event thing that they're working on. Side note, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a new CC Creations video talking about some new features that Star Stable is going to be implementing on July 3rd. So that is very soon. So this could be why focus was taken away from the summer events this year. And also why they were moved up and shortened so that this, starting July 3rd, this new thing can take over. So ultimately, it just seems like the team wanted to focus on other things. It didn't make sense to put too much energy into Camp Western because they just did that last year and they don't want to keep reinventing the wheel over the same thing. They want to focus on new things. So yeah, maybe Camp Western was a little lackluster this year. It doesn't mean that they can't revisit it or fix it next year. It just maybe means that the next time we do see it, it's going to be something else. I mean, it's probably exhausting having to constantly reinvent the wheel of something that you've already done because of negative feedback when you just want to focus on other things. You want to keep growing your game and keep adding new content, but you can't focus on the new content if you have to keep going back and fixing things that you've already finished. And I can empathize with that in my personal work, not to get too much into detail, but I feel like a lot of the times I can't check things off my list because they're constantly being changed after they're done or released. So I can't finish an actual project because things are constantly changing on it when I have a massive growing list of other projects that also need my attention. I can't focus on them because I'm constantly being asked to retouch a project that should be over. And that, honestly, is really frustrating. So I empathize with the team on that. So, you know what? I came to a different conclusion than I was expecting to come to in this video. But I think it's a valid one, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think we can expect the team to constantly revamp events because it's taking a lot of time away from other projects that they want to fulfill and a lot of things that we're asking for. We can't get a Dino Valley revamp if they're constantly redoing the events that we see for a short period of time. Also thinking about that, these events maybe last for a month 4 times out of the year. You would think that it makes more sense to prioritize features that are going to be more long-lasting. Honestly, at this point, I don't even know. You know what? Hold on. I am live coming up with a new idea. This is not the point of the video, but it seems like we're in the main story kind of reaching a point where the story's got to end at some point. The Soul Riders have to win. I mean, they don't have to win, but the Soul Riders have to have their story come to an end so that we just live in the world of Jorvik after the fact. I think if the story ends, they can focus on doing smaller world building quests that are just like helping the people of Jorvik. They can focus on building the world to be a more flushed out, more updated, revamp the areas that need to be touched, retextured, or whatever. And then we can focus on temporary global events. Is that radical? I don't know. But I mean, it makes sense to my mind. I'm not a game developer. I don't work for Star Stable. I guess in summary, the big reason that events maybe aren't going the way that we're expecting them to is there's a lot of reasons. One, they're getting too much negative feedback, so they're constantly trying to change and adjust things, which is drawing focus away from other things that they want to do. Two, they might have just decided that it's not worth focusing on revamping events and just reactivating them because they want to give us other things. They want to give us more of a battle pass style system. They want to revamp areas. They want to give us story quests. And they can't do all those things if they have to keep going back and revamping events. And honestly, they've spent so much time the last couple of years revamping events to dissatisfaction that I think at this point, I just prefer that they focus on different things. Sometimes it's best to step away from something, let it fester, let it think, let it cook. Focus on something else and then come back to it with a fresh mind and then really let it shine. And I think that that's where Star Stable is kind of at. Of course, we won't know until they actually give us a blog post explaining their thought process, and I'm really hoping they do it soon. They usually give it to us like last couple days of the month, so maybe the 27th we'll get it, I hope, if not July 4th. I'm dying to know where their head's at, because, I mean, we can only speculate so much. Despite coming to the conclusion that I think that they should maybe take a little break with events, here's what I think should happen with the summer event, at least in my mind. So I think that the summer Camp Western event should be mashed with Rainbow Festival and just give us the gayest cowboy summer that we could ever hope for. And maybe that's just silly, but here's my inspiration. So I think that we take the Red String Trail away from the Spring Festival and maybe Scott's herding animals in Moreland and make a Moreland hub for the Rainbow Festival, and the Camp Western is kind of like the Star Rider exclusive area of the event. The spring event already has kind of a lot going on for it, and if they plan to keep expanding it like they have been, it's going to be like way too much. So let's take a couple of things from the spring event, move them to summer, fill out the summer event, make it gay cowboy summer. We can do ranch chores, hang out with our friends, do the same like pride trails that we have. Maybe there's like different pride trails in like different areas of the map, like as like the hourly. You can bring back the rainbow gold that we had last year, because that I think was like a St. Patrick's thing from previous years. Bring that back. Maybe it's a lot of like that mining mechanic thing. I don't know, but I really haven't even been mining for gold. But rainbow gold to get me special rainbow gear, I'm in. Like maybe the Cloud Kingdom doesn't need to return. It was kind of like a lot as it was. We can just keep Rainbow Festival like Moreland side, or like, you know, just like Jorvik proper, just like kind of like how like the real world has pride festivals throughout the month. We don't need like a special land to disappear into for the event. We can have it be overworld stuff. I just want a gay cowboy summer. I just think that would be so much fun. That said, I do still think that they should take a break from events for a little while, maybe revisit our little cowboy summer in like 2026 or something. After there's kind of been like enough time to like take a step back, revisit, look at the mood board, and figure out what the community might like, and just like really take their time with it. So yeah, I've been recording for a while and I have no idea what I said, but hopefully it resonated with somebody. Let me know what you think. Do you think they should focus on events? Do you think that maybe they pull back and focus on other things? What's your favorite event? Honestly, I think after Rainbow Festival being the way that it is, I'm done with events for a little while. I'm kind of excited for the monotony of the Halloween event of just doing the same quests over and over and doing the same activities. I think I'm definitely at a point where maybe it's just event exhaustion. I think that I would rather them just focus on the long-term things to enter the game. Like the things that we'll have access to outside of events, or everyday things. With events being so temporary, I mean, maybe it doesn't even make sense to really focus on them anymore. But you tell me what you think. Anyways, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me while I kind of ramble about what's going on in my brain. I don't think I made it any clearer, but hopefully I did. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video like this. I do try to cover every Wednesday update and more. And speaking of, I will see you next Wednesday for coverage of the main story quest. Well, it might not be Wednesday now that I think about it, because what I tend to do with the main story quest is I tend to stream them. So maybe I'll see you at the stream on Wednesday. And if not, you'll probably see the video on Thursday. But regardless, I will see you all next time. Bye!